Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of RAU'S IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates.
Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to detailed analysis of current affairs which are published in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper and are equally relevant for your UPSC preparation. Articles dated 18th of October 2022 are listed on your screen, and the timestamping along with the notes in PDF and Word format are given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 6 and was part of the editorial section. The article actually highlighted the recent report published by World Bank, and this report was published with respect to the impact of COVID-19 on the global poverty. The title of the report was Correcting the Course, and the course here actually means the policies which were adopted by various governments, including the Indian government, towards protecting the people from falling back into the trap of poverty. It has been observed in the last 2 years since the advent of COVID-19 that there was a rise in the global poverty. The people who were employed in the casual work, the people who were working in the unorganized and informal sector lost their jobs overnight. As they belonged to the lower section of the society and had limited savings, hence they were the one who had actually impacted the most. And above all, the death that were caused in the families, especially the death of only bread earner in the family, has further aggravated the situation. The report has highlighted that many countries, including India, had taken many policies, including the expansionary fiscal policy. However, they have been very limited in their success. The relevance of the topic is straightforward. Under GS paper 3 in your mains examination, it could be asked as a consequence and as a cause towards India's growth, development and related concept. It is also important for the concept of inclusive growth because it is going to target the lower section or the poor section of the society. So let us analyze the entire article through this slide. We are going to discuss about how COVID has impacted India's growth as well as the impact on the global growth. Now, COVID-19 came up in the last month of 2019 and the entire year of 2020 and 2021 saw the negative impact of this disease on the world economy. People were dying and the people were left helpless and unemployed. Industries were shut down because of the lockdown, and this has led to the widespread unemployment, ultimately leading towards the global poverty. If we talk about the report has highlighted major global cases. According to the report, over 7 million people fell into the trap of extreme poverty. Now, extreme poverty is the one where a person do not have direct access to even the most basic needs such as water, food, and even clothing and shelter. Around 8% in 2019 were the people who belonged to the extreme poverty, and now they are around 9.3%. It is the first time that the overall extreme poverty at the global level has increased in the past 2 decades. Even the global inequality have widened. Inequality, as you must be aware, is the measure and shows that how much people in the particular economy differ with respect to their income. So, wider inequality means rich people are becoming more richer and poor are becoming more poorer. And this has been because of the poor recovery in terms of economy, because the recovery that has been observed at the global level has been very, very wide and contrasting. The recovery in the European Union, the recovery in America has been far better than the recovery which we have seen in case of Africa. And this uneven recovery has further widened the inequality gap. Poorer countries are unable to use their fiscal policy because their expenditure are far more than their revenues. And that is the reason why they have been lagging behind with respect to the rich countries. In case of India, the things has remained more or less the same. India has actually reflected what has happened at the global stage as well. The GDP growth continues to be sluggish in India even in 2022, and we have not yet achieved the consistent and sustainable long term growth rate that India was aspiring before COVID 19. It has been estimated according to this report, and this report has actually followed the Consumer Pyramid Household Survey, which is being combined and compiled by the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, or CMIE, is an independent private organization that is involved in collecting the important economic data set in India. And based on the observation of the CMIE, World Bank has stated that around 5.6 crore people in India have slipped into the trap of poverty again. Below poverty rate, according to the report, has been around 10% of the total population. So let's say if the total population of India is around 140 crore, this could be the only rough estimate because we don't have the latest census data. According to this, 14 crore people would have been under the below poverty line. The report also says that there has been a minor increase with respect to the MG Narega, with respect to the wages which are paid in MG Narega by 20 rupees. So this was one of the initiative that was taken by the government in 2020 to 2022 as a fiscal stimulus. However, this was not sufficient given the gigantic population India has in terms of rural areas. Despite the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, which was touted to be one of the best in terms of eradicating the hunger during the COVID crisis, and the scheme has been extended since then, India has continuously slipped on the global hunger index, ranking at around 107 in the latest round. This has proved that despite best of their effort under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, government was not able to improve its ranking at the global standards. And lastly, the fiscal stimulus that government has launched, around 2 lakh crore rupees, which was just 1% of the GDP, has led to the further deterioration of the fiscal status of poor people. And despite this, government was actually focusing on reducing the corporate tax that should have been avoided at all cost. Reduction in the corporate taxes in the last 2-3 years, despite the rising in the corporate profit, has led to the further rise in the inequality in economic terms. And that is one of the reasons why rich are becoming more richer in India. Now, as per the article and as per the basic economic understanding, these are the following solutions. The first solution should be that government across the nation should target on subsidies, and that should be the direct subsidies in the hands of the poor. As we have seen in the case of MG Narega, so in MG Narega, money is moving directly in the hands of people. However, based on the consumer price index and the rising inflationary pressure, the rise in the wages under the MG Narega should be increased. Government can also replicate one of the scheme which has recently been started by the government of Rajasthan, where they are providing the employment guarantee in urban areas. The second step would be that government investment to build resilience in the long term should be adopted. This should include the infrastructure projects as well as investment in the social capital of health and education. Revenue mobilization should be there, but it should be based on the progressive direct taxation rather than the indirect taxes. So government should focus less on the GST, as GST is an indirect tax. So whether a person is rich or poor, they have to pay the GST. So government should focus more on the corporate tax. Government should focus more on the wealth tax and even the income tax rather than its expansionary position on the goods and service tax. Now, with this discussion, please, I am leaving you with this practice question. The question says that as per the studies of World Bank, COVID-19 crisis led to the rise of global poverty. As we have seen in the discussion, this is a correct statement and should be substantiated in that manner. Analyze the various public policies towards reviving the economy at Indian as well as the global levels in the post-COVID era. So you have to analyze the public policies that have been taken with special reference to the monetary policy as well as the fiscal policy. Along with this, you can also add the export and import policy that have been there for a while. Also comment on the anti-poverty measures that have been taken. Here you can quote Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. With this discussion please, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 10 and talks about the new appointment of Justice D.Y. Chandrachud to be the Chief Justice of India, and he is going to be the 50th Chief Justice of India. The context says that the President Draupadi Murmu has appointed Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, who was also the senior most judge after CJI Lalit, and is going to be the next CJI at the 50th position. The relevance of this article is straightforward. From the prelims perspective, it is important under the constitutional provisions with respect to judiciary, and in the mains examination, it can directly be asked with respect to the judiciary and its mechanism of Indian Constitution in your GS paper 2. So today we are going to read about the appointment, qualification, seniority decision, removal, and the powers and duties and the role of CJI towards the executive, and basic details about D.Y. Chandrachud. As far as Article 124 is concerned, so Article 124 talks about the constitution of the Supreme Court. This is the prime article with respect to the functioning of the judiciary in India at the union level. CJI is appointed by the President by the warrant under his hand and seal. The strength of Supreme Court, including the CJI, is determined through the parliamentary law. It is not mentioned in the constitution that how many people are going to be the judge in the Supreme Court. It is determined through an amendment act known by the term Supreme Court Number of Judges Amendment Act. Recently, it was also amended to increase the strength of Supreme Court. However, every time this amendment is brought, the strength of CJI remains same. Since the inception of Supreme Court as an institution in India and its constitutional status in 1950, India had only one person to be the Chief Justice of India. The duration of this position is till the age of 65 and its attainment. However, there is no minimum age criteria. So a person appointed as a CJI can be there till he attains the age of 65. So assume that there was a person who has been appointed to the CJI at the post of 64 and he is Mr. A. On the other hand, after him, a person who had an age of 62 known by the term Mr. B was appointed as a CJI. So both of them are going to stay at CJI till the age of 65. Hence, there is no minimum age criteria. He is going to stay for 1 year and Mr. B is going to stay for 3 years. As per Article 124 2A, age of CJI shall be determined by such authority and in such manner as decided by the Parliament through a law. The qualification of CJI has not been mentioned separately in the Constitution. Please keep this noted. Qualification of CJI is as equivalent to that of any other Supreme Court judge. So based on the qualification of a Supreme Court judge, we are going to justify the qualification for the CJI. He should be the citizen of India and should be at least a judge in a high court for 5 years or in a succession of 5 years in 2 or more courts. So he or she may be a high court judge, let's say in Allahabad for 2 years and 3 years in the High Court of Rajasthan. If first qualification is not there, the second qualification may be used, as at least 10 years of working as an advocate of an high court or 2 or more courts in succession. So as far as judge is concerned, it is for 5 years as a judge. As far as advocacy is concerned, it is 10 years. Or the third quality is if in the opinion of the president, and here opinion is very, very important. If in the opinion of the president, a person who is a distinguished jurist can also become the Supreme Court judge and can ultimately lead to the position of Chief Justice of India. Now, after the appointment of Chief Justice of India, the one responsibility the Chief Justice had is to be part of Collegium. And Collegium as an institution is responsible for the appointment of judges in High Court and Supreme Court. Apart from this, he also has a responsibility towards the executive. Chief Justice on behalf of Supreme Court of India is required to be consulted by the President on various legal matter, and this is mentioned under Article 143 of the Indian Constitution. Now coming to the removal. As far as removal of the President is concerned, it is mentioned in Article 124 Clause 4. However, the process as such is not given. The process of removal of the President is given in the Judges Inquiry Act. However, after the following of Judges Inquiry Act procedure, the final decision is taken by the Parliament and the President. So, the Chief Justice of India is removed on the order of the President. So, the final order is given by the President and no other authority, because President is the one who was responsible for the appointment of Chief Justice of India. Now, after the appointment, now this order of the President can only be given when there was an address made in each house of the Parliament, that is in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha separately. When this address is made, there is a proposal which is given in the Parliament and put to vote. The majority of total membership of that house, that is each house, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, which includes the 50% plus 1. This shows the majority of total membership. So if it is, let's say, 250 people in Rajya Sabha, so it should be 125 plus 1. Apart from this, there should be majority of not less than 2/3 of the member of that house who were present and voting on that day. But there is a clause, and this clause is mentioned in the Constitution itself. And the clause says that all these process of addressing, resolution, voting and removal should be presented to the President in the same session of the Parliament. It is not that it can be distributed into two different sessions. For example, if the first one was taken in budget session and the second process of voting was taken in the monsoon session, that cannot happen. And because of these clauses, it remains a very rigid process to remove the Supreme Court judge and also the CJI. The removal ground are straightforward. The first one is the proved misbehavior and the incapacity to lead the position. If these are two causes, inquiry will be conducted, and based on the report of that inquiry, parliamentary discussion will be conducted, and the final decision will be taken by the President himself. Apart from these, the two other articles which are important includes Article 125, which calls for the salaries of the judges determined by the Parliament by law and specified under the second schedule. So whatever salaries the CJI is going to get is determined by the Parliament itself, and all these are mentioned under the second schedule. The next important article is the Article 126, where the appointment of acting Chief Justice is mentioned. Under this, there will be acting Chief Justice of India only when there is a vacancy, or when Chief Justice is absent or is unable to perform duties to his office. This is a temporary clause. This person will be acting as a Chief Justice on the appointment made by the President in this regard. As far as Chandrachud himself is concerned, so he is the senior most judge of Supreme Court, and to your notice, the seniority of Supreme Court, the seniority in Supreme Court is not based completely on the age. So age of course is one of the clause. The second clause is the duration in Supreme Court, that how long this person was actually functioning as a judge in the Supreme Court. So both these things determine the seniority, and that's how it ended up Chandrachud to be the senior most Supreme Court judge. He also served as a Chief Justice of the Allahabad Court and a judge in the Bombay High Court previously. He is a very known judge and known for very famous cases which includes the recognition of right to privacy as a fundamental right previously. He also decriminalized the section 377 of Indian Penal Code that talks about the homosexuality, and he was part of a bench which allowed the women to enter the Kerala's Sabrimala temple for their rights. With this discussion, please let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 4th and talks about the recent initiative taken by the Gujarat to provide 2 extra cylinders for free to the beneficiaries under the Ujjwala scheme. The context says that the Gujarat government has announced 2 extra cooking gas cylinders that would be delivered for free to the 38 lakh beneficiaries who have got the connections under the central government's Ujjwala scheme. Now, from the perspective of UPSC's prelim examination, such schemes are extremely important where the UPSC can ask details, launch, ministry and even the basic beneficiaries and the eligibility of a particular welfare scheme. So let's discuss the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala scheme. The scheme was launched in 2016 under the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. This is the flagship program of this ministry in India. The target of the scheme was to provide LPG gas connection. See, the point is it is providing connections and not the refills. So first time connection of LPG cylinders, that too for the household purposes and not for the commercial purposes, will be provided to around 8 crore beneficiaries by the month of March 2020. After the successful completion of the first phase, Ujjwala's second phase was launched and announced in the financial year 21-22 to add additional 1 crore beneficiaries under the scheme. When we talk about the basic objective, the objective of the scheme includes the provision for the free LPG cylinders to all the beneficiaries' household, provide women with the clean fuel because this is important under the sustainable development goals and also to reduce down the impact of climate change. So we are going to provide the clean fuel to the women to reduce down the disease burden on them and also to protect the important wood and the forest produce. It is also to address the concerns related to the health factor among the women, ensure that every household is smoke free in India, especially the rural areas. It will benefit around 5 crore women and as of now, according to the Government of India, it has benefited around 9 crore beneficiaries. And it is going to be the comprehensive direct intervention for the empowerment of women. LPG connection in a household simply means that the woman who is going to fetch wood for the fuel purposes can now spend more time towards educating their children, can spend more time in the welfare or the development of their children in terms of health, and can also sustain a better health for herself. She can spend more time in developing and building her family. If she is an employee somewhere else, let's say she is working under the MG Narega scheme, she can work there and also devote time towards cooking. As far as eligibility under the scheme is concerned, so under Ujjwala 2.0, it is under the name of a woman and only a woman on whose name the application will be filed. But she should be above the age of 18, that is, she should not be a minor. There should not be any existing LPG connection to that household. If that LPG connection is already there in the household, they will not be eligible for this scheme. As under the socio-economic caste census, LPG and many other electronics remain one of the criteria to define whether a person belongs to a backward community or not. The adult women of not all the household will be eligible. So, an adult woman of a rich household will not be eligible for this scheme. So, an adult woman from scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana beneficiary, most backward classes beneficiary, Antyodaya Anna Yojana beneficiaries, and the workers in the tea sectors, forest dwellers, people residing in the residents and the river islands, including the Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep, and those who have been listed under the socio-economic caste census previously, or any other poor household under the 14-point declaration of this scheme. All of them will be eligible to get the free connection for the LPG in their locality. Now coming to the analysis of this scheme. The benefit of the schemes are as follows. It will provide cash assistance to the connections holders of this scheme. There will be the first refill which will be free along with the stove or the hot plate given under the scheme. The performance of the scheme is extremely good. It has covered almost 97% of its target in the past few years. However, there are certain issues. The first issue is that LPG is still not a popular choice among the women in the rural areas because of two reasons. The first is it is still expensive, and the second one is the availability. In order to provide a gas cylinder to the doorstep in a rural household, entire supply chain of cylinders should be smooth. But in case of rural Indias which are inaccessible easily through the transport mobility, it is hard for the people to receive the cylinders on time. The second one is the diversion of these cylinders for the commercial purposes, especially those outlets which are using food as their business. For example, the confectionery shops. So they use these cylinders through the pilferage and the leakages in the system of supply chain to utilize that under the lower cost. And the last one is that these beneficiaries are struggling to get a refill. Once they get the cylinder, it's okay. But when they go for the refill, first they do not find an agency in the nearby area. If they do, the transportation cost is very high. Based on these important problems, Comptroller and Auditor General of India, who is also responsible for auditing the accounts of India, has provided the recommendation or the solutions to the issues which were highlighted. So in terms of the duplications of the connections, they have said that Aadhaar linkages should be adopted to streamline the deduplication. They have also called for the updating of the distributor's software and the eKYC to reduce down the ghost beneficiaries and scrutinize all LPG data and physical records on periodic basis. As far as low refills are concerned, so the suggestion says that all those beneficiaries who have low or nil refill should be encouraged to go for the refill as soon as possible. As far as commercial purpose diversion is concerned, so they say that all those consumers under the scheme who are highly consuming these cylinders should be reviewed regularly. So let's say there's a family who is eligible for the scheme and they are demanding 10 to 15 cylinders or sometimes even 3 to 4 cylinders in a month should be scrutinized. Conduction of the third party audit in the village areas should be implemented under the scheme. As far as monitoring of the scheme from the outcomes perspective is concerned, there should be a clear roadmap. All the beneficiaries should be measured in terms of the benefits that they are getting. Whether there is an improvement in the health of women or not, whether there was a reduction in the pollution or not, simply means that this scheme should be measured beyond the economic benefits itself. Benefits towards the society, benefits towards the gender, and even the benefits towards the environment. With this discussion in place, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 12 and talks about the recent release of a multi-dimensional poverty index by UNDP, that is United Nations Development Programme, along with Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative. Both these organizations together have released the multi-dimensional poverty index for India and many other countries. Now, from the perspective of UPSC examination, you can utilize such ranking at two places. First one is the prelim examination. Now, in the past, UPSC has asked questions with respect to the many indices, and here MPI is very, very important along with GDI, that is Gender Development Index, and Human Development Index together. So today we are going to analyze about multidimensional poverty index, its component, measures, and how India and many other countries have performed in the last 1 year. Multidimensional Poverty Index for the first time was launched in 2010 by UNDP and OPIH. MPI is based on the idea that poverty cannot be unidimensional, which means one person, one income. So what we have seen in the past, that measure of poverty was primarily based on whether a person is having decent amount of money in his pocket or not, whether he is rich or he is poor. So the poverty remains one of the most important aspect of determination of human development. But as this index says that poverty is not unidimensional, it is multidimensional. So multidimensional here means that apart from the income itself, there are many other measures that should be brought into the practice of measuring whether a person remains backward in the society or not. So rather than just taking the income as a criteria, education, health should be included in the measurement of poverty. Deprivation of these important parameters should be the ideal condition for determining whether a person is poor or not. The index, as you can see on the screen, shows proportion of poor people and the average number of deprivation each poor person experiences at the same time. It uses three dimensions: education, health, and standard of living. Education includes the year of schooling and child enrollment given the 1/6 of the weightage. Health includes the child mortality and nutrition given again 1/6 of the weightage. And standard of living includes many parameters including electricity, flooring, drinking water, sanitation, cooking fuel, and assets. Each is given 1/18th of the weightage. Based on these important weightage, index is derived. A person is multidimensionally poor if he is deprived in 33% of these indicators, that is 3 out of 10 important indicator. If a person is deprived on 4 or more indicator, that person will be considered to be in the form of extreme multidimensional poverty. MPI is very significant as it recognizes the poverty from different dimensions and compare them through the conventional method and measure the poverty not only in the income or monetary term but also from the terms of human development. It permits and compare both country-wise as well as the region-wise across the world. It uses different ethnic group, urban rural areas, sub-national region, age groups and many other parameters for the comparison and analysis. It helps the policymakers to identify the parameters on which they should work in order to bring a person outside the boundaries of poverty. Multi-Poverty Index has shown that post-COVID, there has been the severe cases of extreme poverty in India as well as in the world. Now, according to the article, let us understand what it has to offer with respect to India. You can quote these important statements and the observation in your mains examination. And this can be quoted in your GS papers as well as your essay paper. The first observation is that the incidence of poverty has fell from 55% in 2006 to 16% in 2019 to 21. However, this report has shows that there was a reduction in all the 10 parameters measured under the MPI. The biggest indicator and the biggest reduction was in the case of poverty in South Asia, especially in India. However, India still has the largest absolute population of people who are under the poverty line. And there are around 9.7 crore people in India who are considered to be poor. According to MPI, 21.2% of the people in rural areas are poor. However, it is quite low in terms of urban areas. And that is one of the reasons why during the COVID crisis, MG Narega scheme was given a boost with the expansion in its coverage, duration as well as the wage rate as this scheme functions in the rural areas. MPI values had decreased the fastest in the absolute terms in Bihar because of the base effect. Now the poverty in Bihar was extremely high, so the reduction would also be the highest. It is considered to be the poorest state in 2015 and 16. And the last one is that West Bengal, which was one of the poorest state, is no longer the poorest state in the country. So with this discussion placed, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 12 and talks about the recent initiative taken by the Union government with respect to the launch of Kisan Samriddhi Kendra and One Nation One Fertiliser scheme. This scheme and this article has already been covered under the DNS, where you can find the link given in the description box with the DNS dated 28th of August 2022. That's all for today's Daily News Simplified. Thank you.